Yes. On to you.
Thank you. Both those presentations were extraordinarily detailed and necessarily so, and at the heart of what we do. And it's great not just to see the numbers, certainly, but also the reasoning why, or the reasoning behind the numbers. So my presentation overall isn't as exciting from that standpoint. We this year are working without a facilities director, and so Carrie and I are overseeing the facilities within the SAU. So we are going to update a little bit on what we've done for work this year already. And I include costs so that people have an understanding of how much things do cost nowadays. These prices surprise me sometimes, but we also get competitive quotes, bids if necessary, but competitive quotes, and we're finding the best prices we can, and we're getting some good work done. We'll talk about our 2025 operating budget versus what we're proposing for next year. We'll talk a little bit about the trust fund balance because we do have one for the facilities. And then how the SAU 47, a little bit of a continuation of a conversation from this past Monday as it pertains to open enrollment and the entire movement of how we would be successful if we were to even go down that direction, and how to also help support the ongoing work that we have in facilities. And then a very brief snapshot of the default versus the proposed. This is a lot earlier than we usually show this information. Thank you, Carrie, for putting an incredible amount of time to speed this work up. We have another couple of budget sessions to go, another Saturday that everything will have been presented already, and we'll be able to really dig deep into all these areas and all the numbers. It also gives the board time to be able to look at everything over a period of time before that happens. And then we'll have that extra Monday to make some decisions as well. And then there are some facilities related warrant articles. Within this, we'll look at all warrant article conversations. The board has not made any decisions on warrant articles. We just want to make certain that we're putting information out there publicly, but also having the conversation about how best to communicate to the community our needs and what is going to be best for our learners here and the community, I believe, at large. Jen spoke about, I think you actually used the word ramps when it came to John's conversation around 504 ADA. And so we have had some ramps. We had some problems from facilities that we needed to fix. On the two pictures that are on your left, if you're viewing it and not behind this screen, you would see that there was some damage where there's that fill-in with the concrete. All of that actually was rusted out and was falling apart. And that one right in the middle was actually broken off. And so there were problems there. Steel is actually expensive to work with and to fix. But we were able to get that done, and also a new ramp built over at the pre-K. The preschool over at Ringe Memorial School that needed to be done. That was well overdue. And so putting all of that together, we were able to get both of those done for $21,812. Monadnock Community Builders did a wonderful job. They were easy to work with. We had some competitive quotes that came in higher than that. But also not only were they the right price, their workmanship was great and what we needed. And also they were able to do this before the winter season, and getting people to be able to do it in the time frame we need has also been challenging at times. So they're a new vendor to us, and I know that they did some work here in Jaffrey with the town, and I had been in that I just was in there a little bit this past week or two and saw some nice craftsmanship. So nice community partner, a new vendor that we have that we're really appreciative to work with.
Can you repeat the name? Not to interrupt you, but I do
Yeah.
love marketing.
Yeah, Monadnock Community Builders. And they actually had won the state bid on this type of work, which is good, and that allows us to be able to utilize their services easier. This is another one that they did out here. Actually, if you were to walk down this hallway, for those of you who are here in the lobby area here, if you were to walk down the hallway going toward the middle school or toward the Pratt Auditorium Gymnasium, if you were to go out the door, it would have been a situation where it was very old and falling apart a little bit. And so this was also built recently, and that price you can see there was $10,389. Both of these items were part of the amount of money that the board approved to use out of the Maintenance Reserve Trust Fund, I think about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. And so there's one more item on that list that at RMS that needs to be done, but it is not of that ADA safety nature. This also, as we talk about the work that we need to do to maintain our facilities and to improve things, we are now hitting that time when the track needs to be updated. There are certain timeframes when you put in a track that you're able to skim the code off and put a new one on and so forth. We have to do a much more, it is at the point in time where we have to do a much more thorough upgrade to this. Actually, at this point in time, our consultants would have said that this needed to all be smashed up and redone. The foundation was done well when it was put in, and it is very level, and so we are not going to have to do that. It is not going to come in at $800,000 roughly, which is what the estimated cost was. The company is going to be able to do it for an estimated $475,000. We have that money that has been approved by the school board to go ahead in May, mid-May. This is going to take place. That track is going to be resurfaced. And that will be quite a project that will take place during that time frame, and that will come out of the Building Maintenance Reserve Trust Fund. During that same conversation, the board said, and we need to get started on the windows. And so some of that money has to go to fixing some of these windows. They may look nice from the pictures I am showing you. I can tell you that those windows on the middle and far right at JGS, there's 3 classrooms. They're rather large window sets. They're not in good shape, and really the entire school needs new windows at Jaffrey Grade School. Much of Ringe Memorial School also does too, but the picture on your left are 3 of the windows in the worst part or in the worst condition at the Ringe Memorial School. So these combined are the estimates we do have right now to put in good windows and ones that are going to be energy efficient. We've put new energy systems into these schools. We want to be able to get the most bang for our buck that way. Is roughly 40,000. I think it came in like maybe 500 shy of that, but we have another group looking at giving us some quotes on these as well. So that is planned for spring and summer along with the track. Overall, the proposed facilities budget, this is not including staffing. As Jen spoke in her presentation, there's also staffing, and a lot of that is contractual by collective bargaining agreement, and those increases are found in other documents. We're not talking about that. These are the non-salary and benefit budget information. We did cut quite a bit last year out of the budget in the area of paint and carpeting. I think we cut $120,000. We had done a lot of nice work within these schools, making them kind of pop a little bit more. People comment every time they come in about how light and Just good, how good it feels when they come into our schools. We'd like to get back to keeping that cycle going. We have learned in every area that we have stopped or we have paused our cycles that we've had some challenges, and certainly we know that's the case in technology. That's but also, flooring is important to keep on rotating through the process. And so the FY 26 budget, which is this year's budget, is currently 1,151,182. We're proposing an increase of 100,000, 102,000, almost 103,000 over that. Certainly we'll have conversations about this, but the notable increases are that we would be 70,000 of that would be to suggest to put some of that paint and carpeting, about 50,000 less than what is typical, but paint and flooring cycle and have that be reinstated. If we were to look more at where those lines would be, it would be more money at Jaffrey Grade School. Their flooring needs are much more significant. And then the increase in electricity across the district, increase in biomass here at this plant. That's about the heating. And then snow plowing continues to go up across the district, and then the water systems over at RMS. Jaffrey Grade School and Clement Middle High School are on the town water here. We do things differently, but we do have to have the water treatment taking place over at the Ringe Memorial School. And then just as a FYI, right now, the building maintenance trust fund balance is almost $700,000. Now that will be reduced by the amount once it's all paid for. What I showed you at the very beginning, the 21,000 for the Ringe Memorial School work and a little over 10,000 for the work that was done here. So 30 to 35,000 will be reduced from that. And then when we do have the track will reduce that by another roughly 475,000. And windows, if it's anywhere in the range between 30 and 50,000 is what we expect to get 3 complete rooms here at the Jaffrey Grade School and 2 or 3 rooms over at the Ringe Memorial School to be upgraded and completely replaced. Yes.
So that will reduce us then to about 150,000, is that?
Well, if we took, yeah, so maybe around 100,000. I'd have to, yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna deplete it quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Out of those costs that are notable, noticeable and notable increases, the 70,000 paint and flooring cycle, that would be the one that would be something we'd like to put back in. We think is responsible to do. It's upkeep. The flooring, some of that, the flooring at Jaffrey Grade School, we have to address in this budget cycle. And so we may come to the board with numbers to use the maintenance reserve trust fund, or if it's at a number that is a little more doable, we might be able to find some in some repair lines that we have. But that's just, as you look at that, that's the difference. This picture, those in the audience have a handout. And this is a picture of the default increases. We won't spend a lot of time on this. It's very similar to what I presented on Monday. There are a few differences that were from the one prior to, and we did talk about that one. And these are the decreases. Carry the percent of change on Monday when we were talking about the default was about 4.99 or 5%. If we were to look at the difference between that on Monday and this one, what would you say would be the significant change?
It would be in the vocational tuition and transportation that was added,
Okay.
because that is required by law. So I had to pull those numbers from the high school.
So that's at the very top
Yes,
under increases, vocational tuition and transportation mandated by law.
correct.
Those two items. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's over $100,000 there. If we were to compare that to the proposed 2026-27, you also have that document that you can peruse, and we'll certainly take a lot more time looking at all of this at another session, but there are differences. Certainly, a lot of these numbers are the same, but there are some additions, and you can see that mostly in our choices. We have, for instance, the one FTE librarian at JGS, that a lot of this has to do with positions that were removed from last year's, because of last year's reduction. And so some of these positions were put back in for this year through, along with the athletics and activities, along with the 4-year-old pre-K but they're not in the default budget. So that the world language teacher at the high school, middle school as well. You'll also see here, and actually within the default, it's there to a degree, at least the FTE is, but some cost items having to do with the idea of an assistant superintendent that was talked about a little bit on Monday. And I do have a slide that we can refer to, because I changed up the Monday slides, but I knew that we could possibly talk about that, so I kept it in this. And that individual would actually oversee all of the facilities and all of the curriculum and instruction aspects of the district, what we would consider learning systems. So anything that is going to enhance or solidify or work to improve learning systems or the learning, that's the physical plan as well as the philosophical and the day-to-day operations from an academic standpoint. That would be what that person would be overseeing. And so that's up for conversation. This is an additional not quite 3% onto it's a little over 2.5 to 2.6, 2.8% in addition to the default. Now, that said, this is not including warrant article conversations. So the board could say, you know what? We don't want to put this information into a warrant article. We'd like to put it into the budget. And so we're talking another 2% for athletics and activities. Again, I want to reiterate what John and I think Chris stated, that 2% out of an entire budget for what is accomplished for the community and because it is about the community. A lot of community members come and they are part of the fan base of all of this. There's something to do. It gives life to the community. It continues the rich history of the community. It gives a purpose as well in many cases. And it certainly, for our learners, improves their educational experience. And education is beyond the books and the numbers. So here, the difference is because we're talking about warrant articles, we wanted to give some estimated tax information. You can see that on the bottom, what that would look like. That's something new that we hadn't presented. And then over at the full day 4-year-old pre-K, that is also not within those numbers that were just presented, not within the budget. That does represent a little over 8 bodies. I liked how you stated it, Jen. There's 8 people, but some of them are not all full-time. And That's also the case within what we're proposing for the athletics and activities. You know, rather than 2 FTEs, this number is a little lower than what we had presented on Monday by, you know, maybe about 10,000 or so because of the recommended reduction of the athletic trainer to school year, a little bit more than school year. You know, 10 months out of the 12 months. And then you can see again the full day 4-year-old pre-K and what would go into the costs there and what the estimated tax impact at Jaffrey and in Ringe would be for if that were a warrant article. But certainly those numbers being put into the budget, that's also going to increase the tax impact accordingly. But I think it's important to show as much information as possible for the board to make the best decision it can. I think it all should be in the budget. We had it all in the budget. That said, you know, we have a lot of work to do to build back. This is in these numbers. We are not getting back everything that was removed from that, and that's fine at this point in time. This all should be couched in the conversation of a school district that's continuously trying to think of better ways to do things. And one of those ways is as the state continues to not pay its fair share of the education of kids and across the I'll say the P16 spectrum, so colleges as well. And our legislators not willing to, in the state of New Hampshire, and unfortunately in some cases from the local region as well, supporting this type of mentality has not really sought or taken seriously how to resolve those problems. And they have the power to do so. These people are smart people. They could do this if they wanted to. They figured out how to fund vouchers that have no accountability whatsoever. No one knows where that money is going. We're talking millions of dollars throughout the state that just came about. The funds are there if they wanted to. They could figure things out. But we locally do have some options. The legislature has put into place a mechanism for us to be able to get more revenue. And that is through the school choice approach. So EFAs, charter schools, all of that movement is, as we saw coming years ago, is a school choice movement. We knew public schools were going to be part of that as well. That is here. It is not here in its final form by any stretch of the imagination. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to make it palatable, but I encourage the board to consider us getting in on the early year sides of things. And we have a great school. We just won an award. It was not something that was easy at all to win. We have great systems here. As Heather stated, a lot of that has to do with the culture that has been enhanced and in some cases created by the extension of our activities and co-curriculars and the leadership work that has been put in during the school day as well, that also pours over into the community after school and on the weekends. All of that works together. Everything's a system. It all works together. So we are proposing to the community that this is something that is a possible way to help the community with its taxes, to be able to bring people in. Currently, if other individuals, students came from other schools, they would pay 80% of what our per pupil cost is. That's roughly $16,000. If you brought in 20 kids, you'd have over $320,000 in revenue that you would get. We have the ability to, we have the space to bring more than that in here. We'd have some work to do. You know, other districts have to make their choices as well. So it's not just us, you know, playing in the sandbox here, but we have to do our part. as we move forward and what's best for our district at this stage of the game. We have a lot to offer, and we talked a little bit about what that would look like from an academic standpoint. That conversation we are ready to have at a much higher level if we need to. From a structural standpoint, we talked about the SAU. Part of what was in that proposed budget is an assistant superintendent. When we asked earlier on, before we even got into the budget conversations, what do we need? Well, we knew we needed to have someone to help support facilities. We needed to have someone also to be able to help support all other systems, and to have a succession plan as well as we move down the road in years. And when we talked about the idea, I'll go to that slide. Thought it was in here. Maybe not. Yeah. Over to your right, having an assistant superintendent overseeing the MTSSA, that's multi-tiered systems of support for academics for all learners, multi-tiered systems of support for behavior and wellness, which is a very important structure and system to have in any school system, especially as society continues to change. Generations continues to change, behaviors continue to change, mental health support continues to change. We need to have that. We do have the ability within this to possibly make some adjustments within our staffing and utilize a grant that we have right now as well to be able to fund some of that, which would offset some of those costs. We can talk more about that at another time, but just saying that we could do this in a very intentional and deep and meaningful way, and also save at least money for the taxpayers. It would still have it would still cost the same, but we could utilize some of our MTSSB funds that we have required from the state, from a competitive grant that the state went out to the federal government for on our behalf with 4 other districts. That's a fast overview of these items. Facilities was the primary conversation. Still, it's important as we have further conversations about budgets and warrant articles that we still remember that there's a JRSSA negotiation going on. We should find out more in the next couple of weeks regarding that. And then the question about the Route 202 property. And just to talk more about what we'd like to do with that.
All right. Before we open up to questions, if you're good at a good point, could you just remind us, if you wouldn't mind putting up the budget calendar? And because we're getting overviews right now, could we just, before we go into comments, just look at the calendar real quick and kind of see, here is what is coming for our next Monday meeting and then our next Saturday meeting, just real quick, so people can see, okay, here's where we are going to be fine tuning, so that we have this deadline of this is when we have to have the warrant articles, that. So if we could just see that real quick.
Is that under budget information, Carrie?
There should be the budget calendar is the one you want to look at.
So go to
School board
Board.
calendars.
Yep, so
Here we go. Yep. Okay. Oops, sorry.
And then the budget development calendar at the bottom.
There we go.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, so we've made it to the November 22nd. And our next meeting is Monday, December 1st. And that will be a recap of the last of these 3 weeks of exhaustive focus and dozen hours. And then on Saturday, December 6th, will be our real hammering out budget finalization. And our last date for petition warrant articles is January 9th. So we can still change things and edit them right until that date. So we'll have a few meetings to talk about the warrant articles, definitely get public input. So I just wanted to kind of have that on the screen to kind of say, here's what's coming. But any questions for Ruben on this piece? Yes.
Well, actually, a question for you on the, on this budget calendar. And so on the 6th, we will have time for a real discussion on our numbers.
We'll see all line items and be able to and get of all the detail work. Yeah.
And the 15th, is that going to be a budget discussion as well, or are we finished at that point
What's the 15th
of December?
Third
I know.
Monday.
of the third Monday? So that's on the, I'm sure we're gonna be talking, because we have to fine tune the warrant articles and that's gonna take us time. So I'm sure it will probably we'll be asking more questions on that. As what generally happens at those, at that Saturday big budget meeting is we will always have more questions for, especially for Carrie, and often for Leslie, going back and saying, okay, can we look closer at this one? Or what if we did this? There's a lot of what if we did this? So I'm sure we'll just be doing that all along. All of them will be public, all of them will be recorded.
Carrie looks thrilled.
She loves this time of year.
Yeah,
She loves this. Are you kidding?
and we're a little bit ahead in some ways than before. So actually the Monday conversation, we can have a recap, but we won't be talking about as much of the philosophy and the definitions and the nuts and bolts behind all the numbers, and unless there are questions about that. But we'll be talking about the numbers and then, of course, getting deeper into the nitty gritty on Saturday as well as the board desires.
Okay. Thanks. All right, John, any questions for Ruben on this presentation on facilities especially?
Well, the facilities part is fairly clear to me because we've had pretty much in-depth discussions on my, I guess the big facility question is the sale of the proposed sale of the Route 202 properties. And I know we've got some information at our last meeting about the how much we paid for that property when we first got it, and surprisingly high, actually. And so I have always been, hopeful that we could do something with that property and that we should hold on to it. But given the trajectory of not only our own economics and, financial position, but also the directions the state has gone, it makes me think that this is perhaps the time to let that property go. However, I don't think we should do it unless it really is a significant benefit. So, we've talked about what that property might be worth. I think we need to take a hard look at whether it's worth that much, and in terms of putting together any kind of a proposal, I presume we would ask community for authorization to dispose of that, or do we not need to do that?
No, I'd have to go through a warrant article, and towns get first refusal. So, yeah,
Well,
that's.
there's a couple of things, and so if it does have to, if we do need approval from the town, so I think we need to understand better what that town right of first refusal implies. For example, if we think that on the open market, we can get $800,000 and yet the town offers something substantially less, do we have to sell it for that? And, that's just one question, but there's other related questions I think we need to surface and clarify.
Yeah, as you stated, John, I remember back in 2016, I think it was, when we looked at it and got it appraised and found that it was worth on the market less than 200,000 for that area, and that we had paid, over 300, I think over 350,000 for that property in 1989.
think it was 325.
325, sorry,
think so.
325. So it was 100 to 100, you know, 125,000 more than what it was worth at that point in time. We were surprised that even then. And so you would want, I mean, the idea would be, from at least me putting it out there, is getting a large enough benefit to be able to help support the ongoing expenses of the district. It was for the purpose of facilities, a new facility or new facilities, and that, but if that's not the case, we have to upkeep these older buildings and the facilities that we do have. We need the funds for it.
I mean, when you look at the cost of maintaining the track, I think we said 480,000.
Yeah, roughly,
450.
roughly 475, but yep.
So I mean, the numbers are so large that you know, it would be great to get 400,000 for the Route 202 properties. But you know, it really is a very small drop of of the ongoing needs, I guess is.
Right. I mean, you need new and improved fields down in that, just down below.
Right, and that's what if we were to get the lower field improved, not make it wonderful, but make it good, decent, we'd be talking a couple of $1 million,
It could be
$1.8 million, something like
quite a
that.
bit, yes.
Oh.
To do it right, I guess closer to 4.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
The town's only appraising it at 271,000.
Can you say that again?
The town is only appraising it at 271,000.
Well, appraising which,
side?
The, on the Jaffrey, the GIS map,
oh, the Route 202 piece,
yeah, to
Okay.
the Jaffrey side. I
Jaffrey
don't know
side.
what Ringe is the different system, I don't know how to look that up. But Jaffrey side is appraising it at 271,000.
All right, this is definitely gonna be a much bigger discussion. We need a lot of legal information on what we could even do. But are there any more questions on Ruben's presentation here for John, are you? And Christine?
We'll talk about the land in a second, but we had heard presentations from David Dustin about some of the changes that are being mandated because of the change in the minimum standards Ed 306 rules. I do have a question. Because those are mandated, do those changes that have a financial number, does that go into the default?
Well, yes, the mandated
The mandated
changes,
rate?
yes. I think there was one item that
What
was,
was, I think the business teacher and the reading specialist.
Right.
well, the reading specialist is an elementary situation, and that
Oh, right.
was something that was required well before the Ed 306, this revision of the Ed 306. And which was done differently at one point in time at Jaffrey Grade School.
I think whenever I think about keeping or selling the land on 202, I think about the small impact that it will have. And I wonder, you know, whatever the amount of numbers, I think most of the numbers of that sale is going to come from the Jaffrey side of the property, because my understanding is the Ringe side is landlocked, which limits what can happen there, but we'll see what happens if we ever get there.
The access is from Jaffrey.
Yeah. And it's like someone's home is there, so it's, you know, there are reasons the numbers are so low, I think. But, you know, we're talking about maintaining the track with the sale money, so. Versus having that land because the school cannot last forever. GGS, whatever, you understand my point. at some point in time, the community is going to need new buildings. We talked about, briefly fantasized about putting our new fields there, athletic fields, and oh my goodness, that price was so high because the land is undeveloped. It's hills and beautiful forests and no electricity, not the ideal place to, clear and turn into flat fields. So that price tag was crazy, and it was the same thing for the CTE building. So I have reservations about selling that. I even have reservations about putting it on a warrant article, because I think if it's there, people are gonna vote to get rid of it. So, otherwise, my thought process on that.
Okay. Sandy, anything for Ruben?
No, I'm kind of with Christine. It doesn't hurt to sit on it. What we could get for it. We could blow that in a year doing just little things and it'd all be gone.
It would definitely be blown in the air.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it'd be gone. And I just don't,
And we'd still have problems with the facilities. It's not
Right.
like it would fix everything.
it's not gonna.
Chris, anything?
Yeah, I think to continue with the discussion on the Route 202, I agree with John, and I really want to understand the process. And I think one of the reasons when it came up a few years ago, besides the fact that we had kind of in-process plans for it, was that I was unsure of like what really that process, like if it's a forced, like you need to sell it by this date and this is the price, we could get it even less, or maybe we don't get it. Maybe it goes back to the towns. I don't know I haven't looked into the processes of selling it, where the money would go. I think we need to fully understand that before we can have a recommendation either way. And I think that's the point that John was making, like how does the money go? How does the sale process go? What if we say, is there an option to put it up for sale? And if we don't, get an offer that we like, can we hold on to it? I think all those questions need to be answered before, certainly I'd be comfortable recommending it. I still am kind of hung up on the school care thing, that 440K, seeing that line out in our default budget. I think it's a big increase when we're talking about all of these increases. I know it's unlikely that we could pay it this year, but if you're looking at that $1.5 million default increase, again, a third of it is that school care. I think I'll probably keep bringing it up and ask, is there anything, even if it's like there's a negative impact this year, right? If there's some sort of like hiring freeze that we could at least like cordon off that $400,000. I'd just like to know what the options are. I'm not saying I'd like them, but I think taking, $500,000 out of next year's budget gives it a better chance of passing. Recognizing that there may be a negative impact this year, but I don't understand it yet. And I think my main goal is to be sure that we have a budget that passes and that we can stand behind. And I guess taking that from that to the open enrollment, I do agree with certainly a lot of the points that we've made about open enrollment, but and we do have a lot of good things going for us. You guys, you've heard me say, and I'm all on board with what we've done. I think we need to recognize that we as a district have some challenges with open enrollment as well. And number one, being what families look for is stability, right? If you're going to make this big change to a new school district, stability is important. So before I think we get all hung up in this open enrollment, we need to be sure that we have a budget that we can pass. If we don't pass two budgets 2 years in a row, there's no families coming here. That may be a little extreme, but I
No,
think
that's true.
Families look for stability, right? When you're looking at school districts.
We had families leave after the incident.
Absolutely. And if you're not going to know year to year whether the budget's going to pass, that's, not something that people are looking for. I think, agree with the culture and the courses. That's sometimes hard to communicate, right? That's not, always forefront. We see it. I think other people within the educational community see it. I agree with Ruben in that we need to make an effort to get that out there. Because I think, you know, at the surface, the challenges that we're going to be facing are things that we're talking about, like facilities. People come and look at the school, they look at, you know, I think we do a great job in maintaining it. People look at new facilities, you know, you're building a new school soon, you have new fields, just being realistic about what people are going to look at. And I also, you know, with the open enrollment thing, as I've stated before, I think it's probably the way we're going. So I'm not, but I think we need to recognize that it's, you know, it's probably going to harm, I think, or at least I don't know what the net effect will be. I think in its current form, there's definitely going to be some schools that win and some schools that lose. And this, to me, the legislature and the people that have put these rules and laws into place, again, they may change, but they've oversimplified this, like the money moves with the students. So what's the problem? And I can spell out like a real clear example. Let's say the state were to go to open enrollment across the board. And let's say in our district, we lose one student each in grades 1 through 10, right? So we lose 10 students. So we're sending out, the average, say it's 16,000, right? I know that's probably low.
That's low. Yeah.
It's gonna be low, but let's say we send out $16,000 per student times 10, you know, $160,000. That's like 2 teachers. 2 positions, right? So you have a situation where it's like, oh, we have open enrollment, we lose 10 students, and now where do we cut? You know, we're having those discussions. We've just lost $160,000 out of our budget with, you know, no give. What do we cut? And 75% of our budget is staff. So we look at staff, and then there's like 2 to 3 positions just by losing, and you know, logically, the school district doesn't work that right. You don't lose 10 students and lose like all their money's gone. You still need to have the same amount. So I guess what I'm getting at, I have a hard, you know, I think it's the way it's going. I wish the finances were different. I think if the state paid their fair share of that, the finances would be easier and less harmful to school boards and taxpayers. But you know, there's that part of me that just has a problem kind of promoting what I think is an ill-advised strategy, even if it will be best for us. And I think the other part of the open enrollment conversation that I think it kind of went unsaid last time, but I think it's important that we say it, is when we talk about these improvements, you know, in the future of our district, first always has to come the students of our district, right? And I hope that's not lost on people. It's the kids in our district that we should be doing all these things for, because they deserve it, not because, you know, 5 students might move in and we can get 100 grand. I know that we all feel that way. I just think in the messaging, it's important that we, you know, make sure we state that when we're doing these things. Sure, there may be a benefit to the open enrollment, but you know, we should be adding AP courses because that's what our kids deserve. We should have a robust athletics program, you know, not because we can attract kids, but because that's what we believe in. And again, we all believe that. Just think it's important in the messaging as we go forward with open enrollment that, you know, the priority needs to be the kids that do live in our district already.
All right. Charlie, anything on Ruben's presentation?
No, just a question. Are we going to be talking about open enrollment in future meeting?
Yes.
Are we going to be talking about Route 202 in a future meeting?
I think the board will do so. I mean, Carrie and I have some work from what it sounds like to get some information regarding what a warrant article would look like and what all the options are, and how, even if it were a sale, what would happen with that money.
Then I don't want to take up anybody's time today anyway about talking about stuff we're going to talk about anyway.
Okay.
So
All right. And yeah, I'm good for now. Do we, any further board input?
I just have a clarification question. When with open enrollment, we talk about students coming in paying 80%. Right? Is it 80% of
Hours.
hours?
Mhm.
So that when they go out, if any of our students
Yeah.
go out, we are one of the lowest, probably the lowest high school per student costs. So we would be paying.
Yeah, Messina, Keene and Jaffrey kind of go in and out of being the lowest in this region of the state. We're all in the bottom quartile of spending, yeah.
It's not big lifts.
But other schools in the area, all the other schools in the area would cost more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Some kid was extremely interested in a robotics program that we don't offer. As far as, right? And so they somehow got themselves over to a school district that offered that is
Yeah.
suddenly a much more expensive school district that we're paying 80% of.
Yeah.
It's the other side of what we have to think about.
Yes.
So lots more conversation to have on it. Yep.
The only thing I'd like to add to the discussion is the question of open enrollment seems to be coming. I mean, it seems to be a phenomenon that's coming, but there's a lot of instability still in terms of how it would work. This whole question of whether you can set a standard for how many of your students can go out. I'm not sure how that's going to work out, or whether that will actually hold when the legislature tries to sort out how things will work. The same thing on the 80%. You know, is that the right number? Will they look at it and say, well, wait a second, look at this district and this district, what that would do to them, and no, we've got to change it. So there's still a lot of instability, I think, in terms of what the state is going to decide.
Mhm.
And that includes political instability. I mean, traditionally, every 1 in 4 administrations is Democratic versus Republican. So if it switches there again, that could also, you know, throw things off in a different direction.
All right, so let's open it up to public comments on your presentation. Anybody on site have comments on Ruben's portion?
Hi, I'm Richard Meller from Ringe, and I had the honor and privilege of serving on a committee with Christine and John regarding the property on 202.
Mhm.
And I was coming from the Energy Commission of Ringe with the advice that there was an ideal site for solar panels on the south facing hill of the Ringe portion. One of the features besides the direction is that visibility from 202 would be minimal, if at all, because of the standing trees. And we estimated, depending on the size of the array, that it would be a target of somewhere around 2 megawatts. The ultimate decision, I don't think we ever came to one, but it sort of faded out because it wasn't appropriate timing to develop such a structure. But with something like that as a target area and size, we could produce enough electricity for this entire school district and probably both municipalities. Now, it could go up and down from that depending on size and criteria that was developed subsequently. This was a concept approach. The point is that there's a lot of resources involved with that property that we don't have. The timing isn't right to pursue. But having it sat there for how many years, since the 80s, what's the harm in keeping it there? And I think Christine just said that if it went to a warrant, it would most likely get the approval to sales. So that's a drop in the bucket to the financial crisis, and it would be gone in 1 year. That value is much more in the future potential. Whether, I mean, the solar panels is one solution. There may be 15 others. If we wait for the right moment. So I would definitely oppose putting it on the warrant. I think we need to consider that as an asset in reserve. And I obviously you have questions about the finance and the process of selling and all that. And there's a good. I think it's a wise and prudent approach to go into that and find out the actual details. But to put it out as a warrant article with a less informed public than what you folks will have for information, I think that's very dangerous. And I would certainly hope you would gather your information internally and keep that in reserve for a future crisis, if there ever was one. And also the appraisal of that property has got to be looked into more carefully. If that were to go into a residential development on the top of that hill, those properties would be a phenomenal amount with the views that got there. The talking in hundreds of thousands is too minimal. But I don't even want to go there because I don't think it should be sold at all. Thank you.
Pat Martin, Ringe. I just want to say, looking at the potential output, I mean, that he could be generating $200,000 a year in energy revenue, right? Whether you're using it here and you're not collecting taxes for it, or you're selling it for the community. A few years ago, when the study committee was done, nobody was thinking about AI or, cryptocurrency and these big server farms. And New Hampshire is like looking to host server farms. Our electricity prices are going to increase quite a bit. So the value of producing electricity will also increase quite a bit. And I would think instead of $400,000 or even $800,000, most optimistic, in one fell swoop, if you had, 200,000 year after year going up with inflation, it would be a good thing for the school district. Thank you.
Thank you both for that very much. That is something we've always looked at that as we were looking at the CTE program going there, and all conversations have been talking about the option of creating a renewable energy source there. One of my big questions becomes how much outlay cost is there? How much would that actually cost up front, and how would that be paid? And I am very curious to know if there are ways that the taxpayers would not have to build these. Like, how could this be done where the state or government or private companies are contributing to that? So there's a lot of conversations to have. Thank you guys for coming for that. Any further public comments on site? And then, Richard?
I'll just respond to that. One of the features of the solar panel that we didn't come to a definite conclusion of was based on the restrictions of the grid itself. And you have to contract with Eversource to find out what their local hub capacity is. And I think as Pat says, the increasing demand for increased electricity potential, that's going to be inevitable. It's a matter of when. But there is going to be a greater demand for electricity going forward. It probably exponentially when you think about these AI demands. So once that happens, we have a broader scope of options as to how big that array could be. And so if we're talking $200,000 a year, the payback would be maybe 4 years, and then it's free from then on for maybe 20 more years. And the technology might increase the longevity by then as well. But if you started thinking of it as a financial source for the school system going forward, it could be significantly more than that. We only size the unit according to the current demand. As the current demand goes up, there's plenty of space out there without stealing it from other potential uses, like the CTE place.
Anybody online? All right, thank you, everybody, for that. John?
I'd like to thank, Richard and Pat for coming in with those thoughts, and I think they're good thoughts that we should really look into. One of the things that happened when we were talking with Revision Energy is they had other issues they were trying to deal with, maybe some staff turnover, but we never did quite sort out with Public Service New Hampshire their capacity. We had put some questions to them, but it was unresolved, I guess. And the other thing that I think is unresolved, and Pat pointing to the increased demand due to AI and other demands on the system, is that New Hampshire public policy on renewable energy has always been restrictive, let's say. And, you know, that's something that's probably going to transition over time, or at least it certainly could, because again, where there's a business opportunity, I think the state will look and, you know, maybe make some adjustments.
Let's keep having this conversation. Time. All right. So this concludes the presentation portion of our agenda.
Lisa, could I offer I have a clarifying, I was asked a question earlier and I have a clarifying answer. Is that an okay?
Yes, go ahead. Before we start our consent agenda, go ahead.
I was asked specifically if we have students who are being serviced in our district who don't live here. And I spoke erroneously. There are times when students are placed here through the foster care system who would potentially be provided services here. When that happens, we do bill for those services to the other district. But in all transparency, that can happen, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we have a consent agenda.